I will remind you, Johnny Manziel just turned 21 years of age in early December, on December the 6th. And the good news is here that I would hope that Johnny could even get close to what Brett Favre ultimately achieved in the National Football League, because obviously he turned out to be a top 5 all-time quarterback. Even I will not project that kind of greatness for Johnny Manziel. But I will remind you that Brett Favre was a high first-round talent to me coming out of Southern Mississippi, who fell to the 33rd pick, high in the second round, because people questioned, let me say, his off-field immaturity. And Jerry Glanville, the Atlanta coach at that time, the Falcons took Brett Favre, despised him, didn't want to play him. Brett Favre, as a rookie, threw 4 passes, completed none of them, 2 of them intercepted, 1 of them returned for a touchdown, and there were lots of rumors, lots of speculation about Brett Favre had alcohol issues, he had chasing issues when he was an Atlanta Falcon. Ron Wolf, the great GM of the Packers at that point, said, I don't care about them. I will spend a first-round pick. I will trade the 17th overall pick for Brett Favre. Is that not one of the great trades in NFL history? Favre went on to have some problems, we heard, with alcohol, and then ultimately he had to go to rehab for what he said were addictions to painkillers, to Vicodin. But he fought through that, obviously won a Super Bowl, played in a couple. I still say that Johnny can overcome whatever issues he might have off the field. And I do think he does cut against the grain, follows the beat of his own drummer. I think he likes to defy authority, but I see high maturity in him when it's time to be mature, when it's time to play, when it's time to study, when it's time to get better on the football field. I believe in Johnny. I've gotten to know him a little bit off the field. I trust his makeup. I've voiced concerns. Does he have issues with alcohol? I don't know about that, Stephen A. We've seen erratic behavior when alcohol has been involved. Do I think he can overcome that, control that? I do. So ultimately, I don't mind the comparison. I hope Johnny even gets in the ballpark of Brett Favre's achievement in the NFL, but I do see some similarities in that comparison.
I agree with you to a point. Let me say this. I think Johnny football is getting an incredibly bad rap in all of this. When people sit there and say they saw issues with alcohol, what issues? If you remember the incident that he got involved with outside of a club, he was with his friend. Folks are talking about alcohol was involved or whatever the case may be, but essentially his boy got into a fight with a couple of dudes after some racial epithet was thrown out there, and Johnny football didn't abandon his friend. Most people, anybody from the streets would tell you, you don't just run away and leave your boy to get beat down. If your boy's getting beat down, you got to stay there and get beat down with him. You can't run. All right, that's point number 1. You know, you want to bring up the stuff where he decided to go to Texas for a party, even though he plays at Texas A&M. People talked about how alcohol was involved. Well, excuse me, I don't think that had anything to do with alcohol, because you went to the party before alcohol was ever an issue, which means your decision wasn't about the alcohol. It was about your decision to go to the party at a rival school. That was what the issue was. And so when we sit here and we talk about Johnny football, I mean, I need factual evidence for somebody to tell me that the dude's got an alcohol problem, because I'm sorry, I don't see that. I think that point needs to just be eradicated to some degree anyway. Now we get to the issue of Johnny football and his dedication. If I hear one more adult bring up the issue of women, I'm telling you right now, I might throw up over the national airwaves. We got politicians who make policy that got women issues. We got executives that have women issues. We have athletes. We have people. If you're a man and you're a heterosexual, trust me when I tell you at some point in life, you got a woman problem. So let's just stop all of this nonsense about, oh, women, or he's going to chase women. And oh, by the way, to this anonymous scout who wants to sound all profound, excuse me, I got news for you. If you're Johnny Football and you're 21 years of age and you've got oil money in your family before you ever go pro and you could play like him, you don't chase women. They chase you. So let's be clear about that. Now that we've got that out the way, let's get to the other stuff, okay? If you want to sit here and say this dude may not be disciplined, what evidence have we seen of that? He shows up on the field, And it's not just on game days, it's during the season. During the season, Kevin Sumlin didn't complain about his absence of dedication. Kevin Sumlin did not question this young man and say he didn't come to practice. He's not interested in anything but game day. I haven't heard any of his college coaches articulate such thoughts or anything of that kind. What we're debating here is what level of control you are allowed to institute in the off season. And so they may have a problem with him there. Is that really a problem for the athlete? Or is that a problem for the NFL? Because as I recall, a Super Bowl champion who plays in a secondary now for the Philadelphia Eagles, but he was on the Baltimore Ravens last year, named Kerry Williams, got into some issue from a news headline perspective because of his unwillingness to show up at a workout. His whole point was reminding the world, I'm sorry, that's not mandatory. I have a family. I have a life. We have a right to have a life. Now, if it's a mandatory situation, then I'm there. But if it's voluntary, why should there be news stories about how people are displeased because I didn't show up to a voluntary workout? Excuse me, what the hell is the word voluntary in there for? It implies it's my choice. I can choose to stay or go without penalty, and I can operate with impunity from that perspective. Those are the kind of things that I remember about Johnny Football. That's the Johnny Football that I met, Skip. The Johnny Football that I introduced you to, that I made sure come on the show in San Antonio during the NBA Finals. That guy is dedicated to his craft, to being the best, to showing the world that he's a gamer and he can play. But what he's saying is, you don't own me 365 days of the year.